Slavic mythology is a fascinating and complex tapestry of ancient stories, spiritual beliefs, and supernatural beings that has been passed down through generations, shaping the cultural and religious fabric of Eastern Europe. Much like other ancient mythologies, it reflects the values, fears, and worldview of the people who created it, blending the natural with the supernatural, the earthly with the divine. However, what sets Slavic mythology apart is its deep connection to the land, the seasons, and the cyclical nature of life. At the heart of Slavic mythology lies a profound reverence for nature. Forests, rivers, mountains, and the skies above were not merely physical spaces for the Slavic peoples, but were imbued with spiritual significance. Each natural element had its own set of guardians, spirits, and deities who were believed to influence the world around them. The trees, the animals, the winds, and even the soil were seen as living, breathing entities that could either bring blessings or curses, depending on how humans interacted with them. This close connection to nature provided a foundation for Slavic mythology, which was as much about harmony with the environment as it was about divine intervention or supernatural occurrences. Slavic mythology didn't have a single, unified pantheon or a coherent, organized structure as we might find in Greco-Roman mythology. Instead, it was more fluid, evolving and varying across different regions and tribes. This is due to the dispersed nature of the Slavic people who lived across vast areas of Eastern Europe, from the plains of modern-day Russia to the forests of Poland, the mountains of the Balkans, and the steppes of Ukraine. Each community had its own local deities, spirits, and legends, but there were certain key themes and figures that were widely shared across the Slavic world. In the absence of written records, much of what we know about Slavic mythology today has come from oral traditions, folk tales, and the writings of early Christian missionaries who sought to convert the Slavic peoples. These missionaries, while trying to suppress pagan beliefs, inadvertently preserved many of the ancient stories, albeit through a lens of Christian interpretation. Much of Slavic mythology was also preserved through the work of folklorists and scholars in the 19th and 20th centuries, who sought to document and understand these ancient beliefs before they were lost to modernization. One of the most striking features of Slavic mythology is its integration of everyday life with the spiritual. The supernatural beings and deities were not distant or abstract figures, as in some other mythologies, but were present in the world around the Slavic people. It was believed that spirits lived in the forest, the rivers, and the household, and that these spirits could directly impact human lives. If you lived near a forest, you might believe in the Leshy, the guardian of the woods, who would either protect or trick you, depending on his mood. If you worked in the fields, you might leave offerings to the spirits of the earth to ensure a good harvest. If you lived in a house, you likely believed in the domovoi, the household spirit who protected the family and kept the home in balance. This intimate relationship between humans and the supernatural also extended to the seasons. Much of Slavic mythology revolves around the changing of the seasons, as the people who created these myths were keenly aware of the cycles of nature. Winter was feared as a time of cold and hardship, but also revered for its association with rejuvenation and rest. Spring, with its warmth and new growth, was seen as a time of renewal and hope. Summer was a time of abundance, and fall was when the harvests were reaped and the cycle began again. In this video, we are going to explore this fascinating world of Slavic mythology and legends, but we'll do so with a special purpose. Our goal is not only to educate, but also to provide a calming and soothing experience that will allow you to drift off into a peaceful sleep. Much like the ancient Slavic peoples, who viewed the night as a time to rest and rejuvenate, we will take you on a journey through these ancient myths in a way that invites relaxation, wonder, and a sense of peace. The stories we will tell are not meant to thrill you with drama or suspense, but to soothe you with their ancient wisdom and timeless beauty. Each story will be told in a gentle, flowing manner, allowing you to imagine the world as it once was: lush forests, endless field, and a sky full of stars. These ancient tales are filled with gods and goddesses, spirits, and creatures that embody the forces of nature and the mysteries of the world. But rather than focusing on conflict and tension, we will dwell on the serenity and balance that these myths offer. Whether it's the peaceful presence of the earth goddess Mokosh or the serene majesty of the sun god Dazbog, the gods and goddesses of Slavic mythology represent aspects of life that are grounded in peace and harmony. Through these tales, we will not only explore the characters who populated the Slavic pantheon, but also dive into the beliefs, practices, and customs that were integral to the Slavic way of life. The rituals, the seasonal festivals, the respect for the elements, these were all aspects of daily life that were deeply intertwined with mythology. And by understanding these ancient stories, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the culture that created them and perhaps even find connections to our own lives today. As we embark on this journey into Slavic mythology, take a deep breath and let go of any stress or tension. Imagine yourself stepping into a world where nature and the supernatural coexist in a peaceful, balanced dance. Allow the gentle rhythm of the stories to wash over you, like the calm flow of a river or the soft rustling of the wind through the trees. Let the ancient wisdom of these tales seep into your mind, preparing you for a restful sleep that is as deep and rejuvenating as the sleep of the ancestors who first told these stories. Now, as we begin our journey through Slavic mythology, remember that the key to these stories is not in the complexity of the plot or the grandeur of the gods, but in the quiet moments of connection between humanity, the divine, and the world around us. Relax, listen, and let the ancient world unfold before you in a soothing and gentle way, guiding you toward a peaceful rest. The origins of Slavic mythology stretch back thousands of years, deeply rooted in the cultural and spiritual practices of ancient Slavic peoples. These beliefs evolved in a time before written records, with stories passed down orally from one generation to the next. The myths, gods, and creatures of Slavic mythology were born out of a profound connection to nature, a worldview that saw the earth, the skies, the waters, and the forests as powerful, living entities. These early Slavic tribes lived in a landscape where nature was both an ally and a force to be reckoned with, wild, unpredictable, and essential to their survival. In the early stages of their development, the Slavic people practiced animism, a belief system that holds that all objects, places, and creatures possess a spiritual essence. Every element of the natural world, from trees and rivers to stones and animals, was seen as imbued with a life force. This animistic worldview formed the foundation of Slavic mythology, where everything was connected in a web of spiritual energy. The forests, which covered much of Eastern Europe, were not just physical spaces but living, breathing entities, and the spirits that resided there had a deep influence on human lives. These spirits were thought to govern the forces of nature, and it was essential to live in harmony with them to ensure a good harvest, a bountiful hunt, and protection from harm. As the Slavic peoples moved into more settled agricultural societies, their relationship with the land became even more important. The cultivation of crops and the domestication of animals required a deep understanding of the seasons, the weather, and the cycles of the moon. The gods and spirits that populated the Slavic pantheon were seen as guiding forces that could help or hinder human efforts in these areas. In this way, the connection between mythology and daily life was inextricable. The spirits of the forest, the guardians of the hearth, and the deities of the harvest all played key roles in ensuring the survival of the people. To this day, many of the customs and traditions practiced in Slavic cultures are steeped in these ancient beliefs. Slavic mythology is not one monolithic tradition. Rather, it is a collection of diverse beliefs and practices that vary from region to region. The Slavic peoples were not unified under a single empire or culture for much of their early history, and as a result, their mythology evolved differently depending on where they lived. The East Slavs, who would later form a part of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, developed myths that were closely connected to the vast forests and frozen landscapes of the north. The West Slavs, who would form the foundation of modern Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia, developed their own set of myths influenced by the temperate forests and the fertile plains of Central Europe. The South Slavs, living in the Balkans, created myths that were often intertwined with those of the Mediterranean and the ancient Greeks, due to their proximity to the classical world. Despite these regional differences, there are common threads that run through Slavic mythology. One of the most significant of these is the relationship between the natural world and the supernatural. The Slavic pantheon is populated by gods and spirits who are deeply connected to the elements: earth, water, fire, and air. These deities often represent abstract forces like life, death, fertility, and destruction, and their influence can be seen in the changing of the seasons, the rise and fall of the sun, and the ebb and flow of rivers and lakes. Many of these deities, such as Purin, the god of thunder, and Dazbal, the god of the sun, are associated with celestial bodies, but they are also intrinsically tied to the earth beneath their feet. The earth is often viewed as a mother, nurturing and sustaining life, while the gods above are seen as protectors and enforcers of cosmic order. Another crucial aspect of early Slavic beliefs was the worship of ancestors. Ancestor worship is a common theme across many ancient cultures, but it was particularly important in Slavic mythology. The dead were not viewed as entirely separate from the living, but were thought to continue influencing the world of the living. The spirits of ancestors were believed to linger around the home, offering guidance, protection, or even the occasional mischievous trick. Rituals and ceremonies were performed to honor these spirits, ensuring their continued favor and the prosperity of the family. The domovoi, a household spirit, was one of the most important of these ancestral beings. He was thought to guard the home, protect the family, and ensure that the household ran smoothly. However, he could also be capricious, rewarding those who treated their home with respect and punishing those who neglected it. The connection between the living and the dead was further reinforced by the concept of the afterlife, which was seen as a continuation of life in a different realm. The Slavic underworld, often referred to as Nav, was not a place of eternal torment, but rather a realm where the dead would exist in a spirit form, continuing to influence the world of the living. The souls of the dead were believed to need guidance to cross over into this afterlife, and it was the responsibility of the living to perform rituals and offer sacrifices to help ease their passage. Over time, as the Slavic peoples encountered other cultures, including the Byzantine Empire and later Christian missionaries, their mythology began to absorb elements from outside influences. The arrival of Christianity in the 9th and 10th centuries brought significant changes to Slavic religious practices. Christian missionaries, while seeking to convert the Slavs, also encountered the rich tapestry of mythological beliefs that already existed and began to incorporate aspects of Slavic myth into their new religious teachings. The syncretism between pagan beliefs and Christian teachings resulted in the blending of ancient Slavic mythology with Christian iconography, creating new myths that reflected both the old and the new. The role of mythological figures and deities began to shift as Christianity took hold. Some gods were demonized and reinterpreted as evil spirits, while others were absorbed into the Christian pantheon, taking on new forms. For example, Purin, the thunder god, became associated with Saint Elijah, a Christian saint also known for his connection to thunder and storms. Similarly, many of the old fertility rites and seasonal celebrations were restructured to fit within the Christian calendar, but their roots in ancient Slavic mythology remain strong. Despite the Christianization of the Slavic world, much of the ancient mythology persisted in the form of folk tales, songs, and rituals that continue to be practiced in rural communities. In fact, much of what we know about Slavic mythology today comes from the collected folk tales, which were recorded by folklorists in the 19th and 20th centuries. These stories, while shaped by the cultural influences of the time, still retain echoes of the ancient beliefs and practices that define the early Slavic worldview. The resilience of Slavic mythology is a testament to its deep cultural significance. Even as the world around the Slavic people changed, their myths remain an essential part of their identity. Through these ancient stories, we can glimpse the worldview of the early Slavs, a worldview that was deeply interconnected with nature, the cycles of the seasons, and the spiritual forces that shape their everyday lives. As we continue our exploration of Slavic mythology, it's important to remember that these stories are not just relics of the past. They are living traditions that continue to inspire and shape the cultures of Eastern Europe. The myths we will encounter, with their vibrant gods, spirits, and heroes, offer a window into a world where the supernatural and the natural were inextricably linked, and where human beings lived in a constant dialogue with the forces that shaped their existence. As you listen to these stories, let them carry you back to a time when the world was full of wonder and mystery, and when the line between the human and the divine was not so clearly defined. Allow yourself to be enveloped by the ancient rhythms of Slavic mythology, and let these timeless tales offer you both peace and a deeper understanding of the world that once was. The Slavic pantheon is a rich and intricate collection of deities, each embodying different aspects of nature, life, and the cosmos. Unlike the more centralized mythologies of the Greeks or Romans, the Slavic pantheon was decentralized and varied greatly across different regions. What unites these deities, however, is their deep connection to the elements: earth, sky, water, and fire, and the cycles of nature. The gods and goddesses of the Slavic world were not distant or abstract figures, but beings deeply integrated into the lives of the people, influencing everything from daily activities to seasonal rituals. Their roles were not static. They were often seen as dynamic forces, both benevolent and sometimes vengeful, requiring human respect and devotion to ensure harmony and prosperity. At the forefront of the Slavic pantheon stands Purin, the god of thunder, lightning, war, and justice. He was a powerful figure, often depicted as a warrior, wielding a mighty axe or a hammer, symbols of his control over the forces of nature. Purin was a storm god, representing the raw, destructive power of nature, thunder, lightning, and the storms that could both nurture and devastate. His role as a god of war also tied him closely to human conflicts, and he was revered as a protector of the people, especially in times of battle. Yet, his power was not without a cost. Like many storm gods in other mythologies, Purin's anger could bring about fierce storms and chaos, but his favor was essential for ensuring fertility of the land. He also represented justice, the moral order of the world, and was often seen as a defender of cosmic law, keeping chaos and evil at bay. In contrast to Purin's fierce, warrior-like nature, there was Dazbog, the Slavic god of the sun, light, and warmth. Dazbog's presence was a symbol of life-giving energy, warmth, and growth. As the sun god, Dazbog was responsible for bringing light to the world, ensuring that the crops grew and the people thrived. His importance in agricultural societies cannot be overstated, as his blessings were essential for a successful harvest. Dazbog was often depicted as a radiant figure, embodying the life-giving properties of the sun. He was also considered to be the god who provided the golden rain, a metaphor for sunlight that nurtures all living things. In Slavic folklore, Dazbog was revered not only for his role in nature, but also for his connection to the cycle of life and death. As the sun travels across the sky each day, so too does the cycle of life unfold, rising and setting, giving and taking. Dazbog's story was closely tied to the rhythms of the earth and the agricultural year, representing the eternal return of spring and the life-giving forces that sustain it. Another key figure in the Slavic pantheon was Mokosh, the earth goddess. Mokosh was the embodiment of fertility, the protector of women, and the guardian of the harvest. As a goddess associated with the earth, she was considered to be the giver of life, providing the resources that allowed humans to thrive. Her influence extended to the domestic sphere, particularly in the areas of childbirth, motherhood, and women's work. Mokosh was often depicted as a maternal figure, nurturing both the people and the land. She was associated with the earth's bounty, such as crops, animals, and the seasons, and was believed to possess the power to bless the land with abundance or curse it with famine. In Slavic tradition, Mokosh was not only a protector but also a guide, helping women through childbirth and offering solace to those in need. As the keeper of the harvest, she was honored in rituals during planting and harvest seasons, with offerings made to ensure fertility of the land and the prosperity of the people. While Purin, Dazbog, and Mokosh were some of the most prominent gods, the Slavic pantheon also included many other deities, each with their own specific roles and attributes. Veles, the god of cattle, commerce, and the underworld, was one of the most important figures in Slavic mythology. He was often depicted as a serpent or a dragon, symbolizing his connection to the earth and the underworld. Veles was seen as a trickster figure, frequently in opposition to Purin, representing the forces of chaos and the natural world's darker, more mysterious aspects. While Purin was associated with order and justice, Veles embodied the untamed, unpredictable forces of nature. His domain over cattle and commerce also made him an important figure for the agricultural societies of the Slavs, as he was believed to protect livestock and ensure the flow of trade. Veles' rivalry with Purin became a central theme in many Slavic myths, symbolizing the struggle between order and chaos, life and death, fertility and destruction. Another important god was Sverige, the god of fire, the forge, and celestial fire. Often depicted as a wise, bearded figure, Sverige was the creator of the universe, associated with the element of fire and the forging of life. As a deity of the forge, he was considered the patron of blacksmiths, artisans, and craftsmen, overseeing the creation of weapons, tools, and all that was made from fire and metal. Sverige's power extended beyond the physical realm into the heavens, where he was seen as a father figure who created the sun, the stars, and the celestial fire that governed the skies. In Slavic mythology, Fire represented both creation and destruction, and Svarog's role as a god of fire made him a powerful and revered figure. His influence was not limited to just the material world, but he was also thought to possess great knowledge, wisdom, and the ability to shape the fate of humanity. Jarilo, the god of spring and vegetation, was another important deity in the Slavic pantheon. Jarilo represented the renewal of life, growth, and the rebirth of nature after the long winter months. His presence marked the arrival of spring, a time of warm fertility and abundance. Jarilo was often associated with youth, beauty, and vitality, and his energy was seen as a catalyst for the renewal of the world. He was honored during festivals that marked the arrival of spring, and many Slavic rituals revolve around ensuring his favor for a fruitful season. The Slavic pantheon also included a number of minor deities, spirits, and beings that played crucial roles in the daily lives of the people. Domovoi, the household spirit, was one such figure. The domovoi was believed to reside in the home, often in the hearth or the foundation of the house, and was considered protector of the family. He was a benevolent spirit when treated with respect, but could become mischievous or even vengeful if neglected. Households would leave offerings of bread, milk, or butter to keep the domovoi happy and ensure the well-being of the family. Leshy, the spirit of the forest, was another important being in the Slavic belief system. The Leshy was said to be a tall, forest-dwelling creature, often described as a humanoid figure with the ability to change size and shape. He was a guardian of the forest, and it was believed that he could lead travelers astray, causing them to become lost. The Leshy was not inherently malevolent, but rather a reflection of the untamed, mysterious forces of nature. Respect for the Leshy and the forest was deeply ingrained in Slavic culture, and rituals were performed to ensure safe passage through the woods. In summary, the Slavic pantheon was a diverse and multifaceted collection of gods, goddesses, and spirits, each of whom represented a different aspect of the world around them. These deities were not abstract figures distant from human life, but beings who were intimately involved in the rhythms of nature and the daily lives of the people. The Slavic gods and goddesses embodied the forces of the earth, the sky, and the waters, and their stories reflect the deep respect and reverence the Slavic peoples had for the natural world. The interplay between order and chaos, life and death, light and darkness, was at the core of their mythology, and these ancient deities continue to shape the cultural identity of Slavic peoples today. In the vast and complex pantheon of Slavic deities, Perun stands as one of the most revered and powerful gods. As the god of thunder, lightning, war, and justice, Perun was a figure of both awe and fear, his presence marked by the crack of thunder, the flash of lightning, and the roar of battle. He was one of the chief deities of the Slavic pantheon, often seen as a protector of the people and the enforcer of cosmic order. His domain was the sky, where he wielded the forces of nature with immense power, shaping the world below with his mighty thunderbolts. In many ways, Perun can be understood as a personification of the raw, untamed forces of nature, powerful, unpredictable, and sometimes destructive, yet ultimately necessary for the balance of life. Perun's role as a god of thunder and lightning places him at the center of Slavic cosmology. In a time when people lived in close connection with nature, the sky and its storms were a constant source of fascination, fear, and reverence. The sound of thunder and the flash of lightning were seen as signs of divine activity, and Perun was the force behind these phenomena. In this way, Perun embodied both the awe-inspiring and terrifying aspects of nature. While storms could bring much-needed rain to crops and waters to the rivers, they could also be destructive, wreaking havoc on the land and the people. The dual nature of Perun, his ability to both nurture and destroy, reflected the delicate balance of the natural world and the inherent dangers of life. His thunderous voice could call forth a storm, but it could also be a signal of protection, a warning to enemies or evil spirits to stay away. The imagery associated with Perun is as vivid and striking as the storms he controls. He is often depicted as a muscular, powerful figure, holding a mighty axe or hammer, symbols of his power over the elements. The axe, in particular, was a common attribute of Perun, a tool associated with both creation and destruction. As a warrior god, Perun's axe was seen as a weapon that could split the sky and strike down enemies, whether they were invaders or chaotic forces threatening the world. The imagery of the axe also connects Perun to the cycle of life and death. Just as the axe fells a tree, So too does Perun bring an end to disorder and ensure that cosmic balance is maintained. Perun's power was not only tied to storms and warfare, but also to the moral order of the world. As the god of justice, he was seen as the enforcer of cosmic law, ensuring that right and wrong were upheld in the world. This made him a central figure in Slavic society, particularly in times of war. Warriors and leaders would invoke Perun's name before battles, seeking his favor and protection. In this sense, Perun was not only a deity of nature, but also a god who embodied the values of honor, strength, and righteousness. To be in Perun's favor was to be in favor of justice and moral order, while to incur his wrath was to bring disorder and chaos into the world. One of the most famous aspects of Perun's mythology is his eternal rivalry with Veles, the god of the underworld, cattle, and commerce. Veles was often portrayed as a serpent or dragon, symbolizing his connection to the earth and the underworld. He was a god of chaos and disorder, in direct opposition to Perun's role as the god of order and justice. In many myths, Perun and Veles are locked in a cosmic struggle, with Perun representing the forces of law and Veles embodying the forces of chaos. This rivalry between the two gods was a central theme in Slavic mythological cosmology, symbolizing the constant battle between good and evil, order and disorder. The stories of their conflict often involve Perun's pursuit of Veles, where he strikes down a serpent or dragon in the heavens, causing thunder and lightning to roar as he unleashes his fury. This cosmic battle between Perun and Veles was not just a mythological event. It had profound implications for the everyday lives of the Slavic people. The struggle between these two gods was symbolic of the challenges that humans face in the natural world. Just as Perun fought to maintain order and balance, humans had to work to tame the forces of nature and overcome the hardships of life. The mythology surrounding Perun and Veles provided a framework for understanding the unpredictability of the world. When storms raged or when lightning struck, it was seen as Perun battling against the forces of darkness and chaos represented by Veles. This eternal struggle was not just a battle of gods, but a reflection of the human experience, facing adversity and striving to maintain order in a chaotic world. In addition to his role as the god of war and justice, Perun was also a protector of the people. He was invoked by warriors before battles, and his image was often carried into the fray to inspire courage and strength. In some Slavic traditions, Perun was also believed to have the power to protect villages from invading forces or malevolent spirits. His role as a protector extended beyond the battlefield. He was also the guardian of cosmic harmony. By maintaining the balance of the world through his thunderous storms and righteous judgment, Perun ensured the stability of the universe and the well-being of humanity. While Perun was venerated in many Slavic communities, his worship was particularly prominent in areas where the people faced harsh winters and long periods of darkness. In these regions, Perun was seen as a bringer of light, both literally and metaphorically. His thunder and lightning were seen as the awakening of the sun, cutting through the darkness and heralding the return of warmth and life. Perun's role as a bringer of light made him a central figure in the transition between seasons, particularly in the spring and summer months when storms and rain were necessary for the crops to grow. The worship of Perun, especially during the long, dark winters, was a way of invoking his power to bring warmth, light, and fertility to the land. The rituals associated with Perun's worship are often linked to the changing of the seasons, with festivals and sacrifices held to honor his power and seek his favor. The most significant of these celebrations was a holiday of Kapala Night, which marked the summer solstice. This festival, dedicated to the sun and its life-giving power, was a time when people gathered to celebrate Perun and his role in the natural world. The rituals of Kapala Night often involved fire, water, and dancing, elements that symbolize the power of the sun, the force of life, and the energy of Perun's thunder. These celebrations were not only a way of honoring Perun, but also a means of ensuring that the crops would grow, the harvest would be plentiful, and the people would be protected from the forces of chaos. In summary, Perun is one of the most important and powerful figures in Slavic mythology. As a god of thunder, lightning, and war, he embodies the primal forces of nature, both destructive and life-giving. He is a protector of the people, a guardian of justice, and a central figure in the cosmic struggle between order and chaos. His thunderous storms and his eternal rivalry with Veles reflect the delicate balance between life and death, light and darkness, and good and evil. Perun's worship was integral to Slavic society, particularly in times of war and during the changing seasons, when his power was invoked to ensure a bountiful harvest and protection from harm. Through the myths and rituals surrounding Purim, we can see the deep connection the Slavic people had with nature, the forces that shaped their world, and the eternal struggle to maintain balance and harmony in a chaotic universe. Veles, the god of the underworld, cattle, commerce, and magic, is one of the most intriguing figures in Slavic mythology. Often depicted as a serpent, dragon, or sometimes as a figure of immense shape-shifting power, Veles is a god that embodies chaos, mystery, and the untamed forces of nature. He represents not only the natural elements such as the earth and water, but also the darker aspects of life, such as death, disease, and the unseen forces that influence human existence. While Purim, his eternal rival, embodies the righteous and orderly forces of nature, Veles stands as a god of disorder, embodying the wild, chaotic, and uncontrollable aspects of the world. This contrast between Veles and Purim is central to Slavic cosmology, representing the eternal struggle between order and chaos, light and dark. Veles is primarily associated with the underworld, a domain that was seen as both a physical place and a spiritual realm. The underworld in Slavic belief was not a place of eternal torment, as it is often depicted in other mythologies, but rather a place of transformation and renewal. Souls of the dead would travel to Veles's domain after death, passing through a spiritual journey where they might encounter trials and challenges before reaching their final resting place. Veles, as a god of the underworld, played a critical role in this process, guiding souls on their journey and ensuring that the natural order was maintained even in death. This made Veles a figure not only of the physical world, but also of the spiritual realm, where life, death, and rebirth were in constant motion. In many Slavic myths, Veles is depicted as the ultimate trickster. Unlike the more straightforward and righteous Purim, Veles was known for his cunning and ability to deceive both gods and mortals alike. This trickster aspect of Veles gave him a unique and complex role within the pantheon. He was often seen as a tempter, luring individuals into making choices that might lead them astray, either through greed, lust, or other vices. However, Veles was not purely malevolent. His trickery was a reflection of the unpredictable nature of life itself. In some ways, Veles represented the forces of fate, which could be capricious and difficult to understand. His role as a god of cattle also made him protector of wealth and prosperity, but like many gods associated with wealth, his gifts came with risks and challenges. The cattle and livestock that Veles governed were symbols of both sustenance and potential loss, and his unpredictable nature meant that blessings from Veles could easily turn to misfortune. One of the most important aspects of Veles's mythology is his rivalry with Purim, which is a central theme in Slavic myth. Their ongoing battle is symbolic of the struggle between the forces of good and evil, order and chaos. In the myths, Veles often steals Purim's cattle or attempts to disrupt the peace and harmony of the world. In retaliation, Purim chases Veles through the skies, wielding his thunderbolts to strike down his foe. The struggle between Purim and Veles is not simply a battle between two gods. It represents the ongoing tension between the forces of law and the untamed forces of nature. The battle often ends with Veles being struck down, only for him to rise again, initiating a new cycle of conflict. This eternal struggle mirrors the cycles of life, where order and chaos are in constant opposition, but neither can ever fully prevail. Veles's role as a god of cattle and commerce was also vital to the Slavic people. Agriculture and animal husbandry were central to the economy and survival of the ancient Slavic tribes, and Veles was seen as a protector of livestock. He ensured that the cattle were healthy and the flocks grew, providing sustenance for the people. However, his connection to commerce made him a god who could also influence the flow of wealth and trade. Veles governed over prosperity of individuals and communities, but his blessings were never guaranteed, and his fickle nature meant that fortune could quickly turn to misfortune. This dual aspect of Veles, as both protector and a trickster, made him a god that required careful respect. Offerings and rituals were performed to appease him, particularly in times of hardship, when people sought his favor to ensure the health of their cattle or the success of their businesses. Veles's association with commerce also made him a god of wealth and trade, and in some myths, he was seen as a deity who controlled the flow of goods and riches. His favor was considered essential for success in trade, and many merchants would invoke his name to secure favorable outcomes in their dealings. Velus's role as a god of magic and transformation is another important aspect of his character. Magic was an integral part of Slavic culture, especially in the form of folk rituals, healing practices, and divination. Velus was thought to have the power to shapeshift and change his form, often appearing as a serpent, a dragon, or even as a human being. His ability to transform made him a deity closely associated with the mystical and the unknown, and he was often invoked in rituals that sought to harness the power of magic. His magic was considered both dangerous and beneficial, and it was believed that his influence could be used for both good and ill. In this sense, Velus was a god who walked the line between light and dark, his power representing the ambiguity and complexity of magic itself. The relationship between Velus and the natural world is also noteworthy. While Perun ruled over the heavens and controlled the weather, Velus's dominion extended to the earth, particularly the forests, rivers, and underground realms. The earth itself was seen as a realm of mystery, where the forces of nature were hidden from view, and Velus, as the god of the underworld, was thought to govern these dark, mysterious spaces. His association with rivers and lakes reinforced his connection to the earth, as water was seen as a liminal space between the physical and spiritual realms. Rivers, in particular, were considered sacred, and it was believed that they connected the living world to the realm of the dead. Velus's role as the god of water further emphasized his control over the unseen forces of nature, making him a powerful and unpredictable figure. In Slavic mythology, Velus was not simply a god to be feared, but also one to be respected. His unpredictable nature meant that he could both bless and curse those who invoked him, depending on their actions. Offerings of bread, milk, and butter were often left in the woods or near rivers to honor Velus, asking for his favor in matters of cattle, commerce, and magic. He was a god of paradoxes, embodying both the creation and destruction of life. While Perun represented the predictable forces of nature, Velus was a force that lurked beneath the surface, unseen and unpredictable, yet equally powerful. In many ways, Velus symbolizes a deeper, more mysterious aspect of life. He represents the forces of nature that cannot be controlled or understood, the chaos that lies beneath the surface of order. He is both a protector and a trickster, a deity who must be approached with caution and respect. His rivalry with Perun and his association with death, wealth, and magic make him one of the most multifaceted and enigmatic figures in Slavic mythology. Velus's presence in Slavic culture is a reminder that life itself is not always predictable or easily understood. It is filled with mystery, danger, and transformation, and it is only through respect for these forces that balance can be achieved. In conclusion, Velus is a complex and powerful figure in Slavic mythology, embodying the chaos, mystery, and untamed forces of nature. As the god of the underworld, cattle, commerce, and magic, he played a critical role in the lives of the ancient Slavic people. His rivalry with Perun, his trickster nature, and his connection to the earth, water, and the unseen realms all contribute to his status as one of the most intriguing and significant deities in Slavic belief. Velus represents the duality of life, both light and dark, creation and destruction, and his stories remind us of the ever-present tension between order and chaos that shapes our world. Mokash, the ancient Slavic goddess of earth, fertility, and women's work, holds a revered place in the heart of Slavic mythology. She is one of the oldest and most important deities, with her influence permeating every aspect of daily life in the agricultural societies of Slavs. Mokash's name itself is derived from the word makri, meaning moist or wet, which reflect her close connection to the earth and fertility. As a goddess who embodied the life-giving and nurturing aspects of nature, Mokash was seen as the very source of life, prosperity, and sustenance. Her domain was vast and multifaceted, encompassing everything from the soil beneath the feet to the harvest that fed families, and from protection of women and children to the rites of passage associated with birth and death. In many ways, Mokash represents the archetype of the nurturing mother. Her role as a fertility goddess links her to the cycles of life, birth, growth, death, and rebirth. As the protector of the harvest and the guardian of crops, Mokash ensured that the earth produced enough food to sustain the people. The cycles of planting and harvesting were deeply connected to her, and offerings were made to her to ensure a bountiful crop. It was believed that she controlled the fertility of the land, making it fertile or barren depending on her favor. Her influence extended beyond the realm of crops, however, as she was also the protector of women, particularly in matters of childbirth and motherhood. Mokosh was invoked during labor and birth, as her divine protection was sought to ensure a safe delivery and the health of the mother and child. This connection to women's health and fertility solidified her role as one of the most beloved and essential deities in Slavic culture. Mokosh's role as a goddess of fertility was not limited to the physical act of reproduction. She was also a goddess of the earth itself, of the soil, the forest, and the very ground that sustained life. In a time when agriculture was the backbone of society, the fertility of the earth was seen as paramount to the survival of the people. Mokosh was thought to bless the land, ensuring that it was rich and capable of yielding plentiful crops. Her power was believed to be tied to the natural world, particularly the seasons. In spring, when the earth was tilled and seeds were sown, Mokosh was invoked for fertility of the soil. In summer, when the crops were growing, her blessings were sought for abundant harvests. In autumn, as the crops were gathered, Mokosh's role as protector of the harvest became especially significant, as her favor ensured that the land would continue to provide in the years to come. She was the eternal cycle of life, representing both the nurturing power of nature and its eventual decline into death and decay, only to be reborn in the next season. Mokosh's connection to the earth also made her the goddess of water. Water, as a life-giving force, was considered sacred and essential to fertility of the land. Rivers, lakes, and springs were often associated with Mokosh, and many Slavic communities believed that she inhabited these bodies of water. The rituals and offerings made to her were not just for fertility of the crops, but also to ensure that water sources remained pure and plentiful. The idea of water as a sacred and life-sustaining force was deeply ingrained in Slavic culture, and Mokosh, as a goddess of fertility, was invoked to maintain the balance between earth, water, and human life. Her protection ensured that the land and the people would have the necessary resources for survival, particularly in times of drought or famine. Her influence over water also symbolized the flow of life itself, nourishing, cleansing, and sustaining all that it touched. In addition to her role in agriculture and fertility, Mokosh was also closely associated with women's work. In ancient Slavic societies, women were responsible for many domestic duties, including spinning, weaving, and cooking. Mokosh, as a goddess of women's labor, was seen as the patroness of these domestic activities. She was invoked by women to bless their work, to ensure that they were successful in their domestic roles, and help them fulfill their duties as mothers, wives, and caretakers. The connection between Mokosh and women's work is significant, as it reflects the centrality of women in maintaining the household and, by extension, the community. Women were the keepers of the hearth, the nurturers of the family, and the guardians of the home, and Mokosh's protection was seen as essential to their success. One of the most striking aspects of Mokosh's character is her connection to the cycles of life and death. As a fertility goddess, she represented the full circle of existence: birth, growth, decay, and renewal. Mokosh's power was tied to the ebb and flow of life, and she was considered a figure of balance. In her nurturing role, she ensured that life was abundant, but she also played a part in the natural cycle of death and decay. The earth itself was seen as a place where life was constantly reborn. New crops sprouted, animals were born, and the seasons changed. But death, too, was part of the cycle. Mokosh's influence was seen as ensuring that death was not an end, but transformation, a part of the ongoing process of life. Her role as a goddess of death, however, was not one of destruction. Instead, it was a necessary part of the renewal of life, as her blessings helped ensure that the earth remained fertile and that life continued in its natural course. Despite her central importance in Slavic mythology, Mokosh's worship was often overshadowed by the more prominent gods, such as Purin and Veles. Nevertheless, she was still a key figure, particularly in the rural and agricultural communities that depended on the land for survival. Mokosh was one of the few deities who was universally revered across the Slavic world, and her worship was practiced from the southern Balkans to the forests of Russia. As with many other ancient deities, her worship evolved over time, particularly with the advent of Christianity. Some aspects of Mokosh's character were absorbed into Christian traditions, with her protective and nurturing qualities being linked to the Virgin Mary in certain Slavic cultures. However, the core of Mokosh's mythology, the nurturing, fertility, and life-giving aspects, remain deeply ingrained in the cultural fabric of Slavic societies, influencing both ancient traditions and more modern beliefs. The rituals dedicated to Mokosh were often tied to the changing of the seasons and the agricultural calendar. Festivals and celebrations were held at key times of the year, particularly during the sowing and harvesting seasons. In these rituals, offerings of bread, milk, honey, and other foodstuffs were made to Mokosh, symbolizing the gratitude of the people for her gifts of fertility and abundance. These offerings were not only meant to ensure a successful harvest, but also to honor Mokosh as the source of life itself. In addition to agricultural rituals, Mokosh was invoked during childbirth, marriage, and other rites of passage. Her blessings were sought to ensure the health and well-being of women, children, and families, and provide protection during times of transition. In many Slavic cultures, Mokosh was also seen as a goddess of the land itself. She was believed to inhabit the forests, fields, and mountains, and it was thought that she could be found in the very soil that nourished the crops. The earth was seen as her domain, and it was believed that she could communicate with the people through the signs of nature. A bountiful harvest was a sign of her favor, while a barren field or a failed crop was seen as a sign of her displeasure. This connection to the earth gave Mokosh a unique status among the gods, as she was a deity whose influence was both tangible and deeply rooted in the daily lives of the people. Mokosh's enduring significance in Slavic mythology is a testament to the deep connection that the Slavic people had with the natural world. As a fertility goddess, she was central to the agricultural rhythms that governed their lives, and as a protector of women, she embodied the nurturing and life-giving qualities that were so important in the community. Her influence extended from the sowing of the seed to the birth of a child, from the harvest to protection of the home. Mokosh was, in many ways, the embodiment of the earth itself, nurturing, abundant, and ever-present. Her legacy continues to resonate in the folklore and customs of Slavic cultures, where she remains a symbol of the earth's fertility, the cycles of life, and the timeless connection between nature and humanity. Dazbog, one of the most prominent and revered gods in Slavic mythology, is a personification of the sun, warmth, and the life-giving energy that sustains all living things. As the god of the sun, Dazbog's presence was central to the agricultural societies of the Slavs, where the sun was seen as a vital force in ensuring fertility of the land and the prosperity of the people. His name, which means giver of wealth or giver of blessings, reflects his connection to abundance, light, and growth. In many ways, Dazbog represents the very cycle of life itself, with the sun's daily journey across the skies serving as a symbol of life's continuity, rising in the morning, reaching its peak at noon, and setting at night, only to rise again the following day. This eternal cycle of renewal and rebirth was seen as a work of Dazbog, and his favor was sought by the people to ensure that the earth would continue to be nourished by the sun's rays. Dazbog's connection to the sun made him a symbol of light, life, and warmth. In a world where the seasons played a critical role in the survival of agricultural communities, Dazbog's power was seen as essential for the prosperity of crops and fertility of the earth. His rays brought warmth to the soil, coaxing plants from the ground and encouraging the growth of crops. Without the sun's energy, the earth would lie barren and life would cease to exist. The Slavs, who relied heavily on agriculture for their survival, saw Dazbog as a benevolent god, one who brought the sun's blessings to the land, ensuring that the harvest would be plentiful and that the people would thrive. In this sense, Dazbog's role as the sun god was not only one of cosmic importance, but also of practical necessity. His power was directly tied to the rhythms of nature and the cycles of the seasons, making him a central figure in the agricultural life of the Slavic people. Dazbog's influence extended beyond just the physical world. As a god of the sun, he was also a figure of light in a spiritual sense, representing knowledge, truth, and clarity. In many cultures, the sun is seen as a symbol of enlightenment, and Dazbog was no different. His light illuminated the world, not only in a literal sense, but also by guiding the people toward wisdom and understanding. As a source of divine energy, Dazbog was believed to provide clarity and guidance to those who sought his favor. This connection to light and enlightenment was reflected in the rituals and prayers dedicated to him, where people asked for his blessings not only for a bountiful harvest, but also for personal growth, understanding, and spiritual enlightenment. In many Slavic traditions, Dazbog was also associated with protection of the family and the home. The sun's warmth and light were seen as essential for life, and in this way, Dazbog was considered protector of the hearth and the household. People would invoke his name to ensure the well-being of their families, seeking his blessings for health, happiness, and prosperity. This connection to home and family also reinforced Dazbog's role as a god of abundance. Just as the sun's rays nurture the crops in the fields, so too did Dazbog's blessings nurture the people in their homes, ensuring that they would have enough food to eat and the resources needed to live a comfortable and secure life. Dazbog's connection to the sun also made him a symbol of the changing seasons, particularly the transition between winter and summer. In Slavic mythology, the sun was seen as a key player in the battle between light and darkness, with the winter months representing a time of death and dormancy, and the summer months symbolizing life and growth. Dazbog's return each spring was seen as a renewal of life, bringing warmth and vitality to the earth. The return of the sun marked the end of the long, cold winter and the beginning of a new cycle of growth and abundance. In many Slavic cultures, festivals were held to celebrate the sun's return, particularly during the spring equinox when the days grew longer and the warmth of the sun began to reach its peak. These celebrations were dedicated to Dazbog, and people would offer sacrifices and prayers to him, thanking him for his life-giving energy and asking for his continued blessings. In the myths surrounding Dazbog, the god is often depicted as a radiant and powerful figure, embodying the sun's brilliance and strength. He is sometimes shown riding a chariot across the sky, symbolizing the sun's daily journey from east to west. This image of Dazbog as a sun charioteer is a common motif in many cultures and reflects the cyclical nature of the sun's movement. The idea of the sun traveling across the sky each day was central to many religious and mythological systems, and Dazbog's chariot ride was seen as a symbol of the passage of time, the unfolding of life, and the eternal rhythm of the universe. As the sun crossed the sky, so too did the seasons change, and life itself unfolded in its natural course. Dazbog's relationship with other gods and figures in the Slavic pantheon is also of great significance. While he was not as directly involved in the cosmic battles between gods like Perun and Veles, Dazbog's role as the sun god placed him in a position of great importance in the Slavic worldview. In some myths, he is portrayed as a benefactor of humanity, providing them with the gifts of warmth, light, and abundance. He is also sometimes associated with the moon and the stars, which were seen as his companions in the sky. This connection to the celestial realm reinforced Dazbog's status as a figure of divine light, not only in the physical world but also in the heavens. One of the most fascinating aspects of Dazbog's mythology is his connection to the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Just as the sun rises and sets each day, bringing light to the world, and then retreating into darkness, Dazbog's power was seen as a reflection of the eternal cycle of life. His descent into darkness at night was a symbolic reminder that all things must come to an end, only to be reborn with the dawn. In this sense, Dazbog represented not just the sun's power, but the larger cosmic forces of creation and destruction, of life and death. This cycle of renewal was central to Slavic cosmology, where the changing of the seasons and the eternal return of the sun were seen as a constant reminder of the impermanence of life and the importance of living in harmony with the natural world. Dazbog's association with the sun and light also made him a symbol of hope and resilience in times of hardship. Particularly during long winters or difficult periods of drought, the people would turn to Dazbog for his blessings. His light was seen as a source of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark or cold the world may seem, the sun would always rise again. This belief in the return of the sun was a powerful force for the people, providing them with the strength to endure the trials of life and the assurance that better times were ahead. The rituals and prayers dedicated to Dazbog were often acts of faith, expressing people's belief that the sun's light would guide them to the darkest of times and bring them to a place of warmth and abundance. Dazbog's enduring significance in Slavic mythology is a testament to the central role the sun plays in human life. As a god of the sun, he embodies the eternal cycle of light and dark, life and death, growth and decay. His power is the very essence of the natural world, governing the cycles of the seasons, the growth of crops, and the rhythms of the earth. Through his association with warmth, light, and abundance, Dazbog became a symbol of life itself, offering hope and renewal to the people. His worship was deeply connected to the cycles of nature, and his blessings were sought by the people in times of both plenty and hardship. In many ways, Dazbog's mythology reflects the deep respect and reverence the Slavic people had for the sun as the ultimate source of life and energy, Its enduring presence in their folklore serves as a reminder of the eternal rhythm of the natural world. Lada, the Slavic goddess of love, beauty, fertility, and spring, is one of the most beloved deities in the Slavic pantheon. Her name is often associated with the concept of beauty and harmony, and she embodies the ideal of natural beauty, love, and the blossoming of life. Lada represents the gentler, nurturing aspects of the divine feminine, focusing on a harmonious balance between nature and humanity, as well as the sacredness of love and relationships. Unlike other more warlike or cosmic deities, Lada is intrinsically connected to the cycles of growth, renewal, and the seasons. In Slavic traditions, her presence was most celebrated during the spring, a time when the earth awakens from its winter slumber and the first signs of life begin to emerge. Her role in these transitions, both seasonal and emotional, made her a central figure in Slavic worship, often invoked in rituals and ceremonies tied to fertility, marriage, and the renewal of life. As a fertility goddess, Lada's influence was closely tied to the earth cycles. She was believed to have the power to bring life to the fields and forests, ensuring the growth of crops, the flourishing of animals, and the renewal of the earth each spring. Just as nature begins to bloom in spring, so too does Lada's energy awaken the world, infusing it with vitality and fertility. Her association with spring and rebirth made her an essential figure for the survival of agricultural communities. The arrival of spring, the blossoming of flowers, and the maturing of crops were all seen as her gifts to the world. In many cultures, the return of spring was seen as a time of renewal, and Lada's role in this transformation was central. She symbolized the fecundity of the earth, the abundance of nature, and the inherent fertility that allowed life to flourish. This made her particularly important for communities that depended on the land for sustenance, as her blessings ensured bountiful harvests and the prosperity of families. Lada's connection to love and beauty also made her an important deity in matters of the heart. As the goddess of love, she was a patroness of romantic relationships, marriages, and family life. She was invoked in ceremonies of love and courtship, as well as in wedding rituals, where people sought her blessings to ensure the success of their relationships and the happiness of their unions. Her influence was not only restricted to romantic love, but also extended to the love between parents and children, as well as the love of the land and nature itself. Lada represented the harmonious and peaceful aspects of love, focusing on nurturing connections between people, as well as the bond between humanity and the earth. Her role as a goddess of beauty also made her a symbol of grace and elegance, both physically and spiritually. She was associated with the ideal form of beauty, a beauty that was not merely external but reflected the harmony of nature and the inner beauty of the soul. In this way, Lada was a goddess who encouraged people to seek not only external beauty, but also inner peace, balance, and harmony in their lives. In addition to her role in fertility and love, Lada was also seen as a protector of women. In particular, she was believed to safeguard women during childbirth and to ensure the well-being of mothers and children. As a goddess of the family, Lada's blessings were sought for a safe and easy delivery, as well as for the health and prosperity of children. The connection between Lada and motherhood was vital, as the survival of the community depended on healthy births and the nurturing of the next generation. In many Slavic traditions, Lada was also associated with the feminine aspects of nature, particularly the cycles of the moon and the rhythms of the earth. These natural cycles, which mirrored the cycles of a woman's body, further cemented Lada's role as a protector of women and the nurturer of life. Her connection to the moon also gave her a mystical and magical quality, as the moon was seen as a symbol of femininity and intuition, as well as the cycles of time and growth. Lada's role in the Slavic pantheon extended beyond fertility and love. She was also deeply connected to the spiritual well-being of the people. As a goddess of beauty, she represented the beauty not only of the natural world, but also of the soul. Her presence was a reminder to people to seek harmony in their relationships, both with one another and with the earth. In a time when survival was closely tied to the land and the cycles of nature, Lada was the embodiment of the hope that the earth would continue to provide, that the flowers would bloom, and that love and connection would thrive in human hearts. She was seen as a divine mediator between the human and the natural world, helping to maintain the balance that allowed for life to flourish. Lada's festivals were some of the most joyous and vibrant in Slavic traditions. These festivals, which celebrated the arrival of spring and the renewal of life, were often filled with music, dancing, feasting, and various forms of revelry. The people would gather to honor Lada, offering her sacrifices of flowers, fruits, and other symbols of fertility. These celebrations were not only a way of marking the changing of the seasons, but also a means of ensuring that the year would be filled with love, prosperity, and abundance. The energy of the festival was one of joy and optimism, as the people looked forward to the blessings that Lada would bring in the coming months. The rituals surrounding Lada were often tied to the renewal of life, both in the fields and in human relationships. These celebrations were meant to ensure that the earth would remain fertile and that the love and harmony between people would continue to thrive. In some Slavic traditions, Lada was also associated with the concept of the divine feminine, representing an idealized version of womanhood. As the goddess of beauty, love, and fertility, she was a symbol of the feminine qualities of grace, nurturing, and compassion. Her role as a protector of women and children reinforced this ideal, making her a figure of deep reverence for women in particular. Her connection to the earth, the seasons, and the cycles of nature mirror the natural rhythms of a woman's life, from the stages of youth and fertility to motherhood and aging. In this way, Lada's mythology provided a framework for understanding the natural and spiritual aspects of womanhood, and she was honored as a divine model of feminine strength and wisdom. Lada was also sometimes depicted alongside other deities who represented the various forces of nature. In some myths, she was paired with her consort, Dazbog, the god of the sun, with whom she shared divine union that brought life and warmth to the world. Together, they embodied the union of the earth and the heavens, a symbolic representation of the balance between the feminine and masculine forces of nature. The sun and the earth, represented by Dazbog and Lada, were seen as complementary forces, working together to ensure fertility of the land and the prosperity of the people. This partnership between the sun and the earth was symbolic of the interconnectedness of all life and the harmony that must exist between the forces of nature for the world to thrive. In some Slavic traditions, Lada's role was also linked to the concept of the Wheel of the Year, a pagan idea that ties human life and rituals to the natural cycles of the seasons. Lada was often invoked during the spring equinox, a time when the balance between day and night is equal, symbolizing the harmony and renewal that she represented. This equinox was seen as a time of rebirth, when the earth was awakened from its winter slumber, and Lada's influence was believed to bring new life and vitality to the world. Her festivals at this time were particularly significant, as they marked the beginning of the fertile season, a time when new growth would emerge and the earth would become alive with energy and possibility. Lada's influence is still present in some aspects of modern Slavic cultures, particularly in the customs and rituals that celebrate the cycles of nature and the changing of the seasons. Though many of the ancient practices associated with her worship have faded over time, the underlying themes of renewal, love, beauty, and fertility continue to resonate in the hearts of the people. Lada remains a symbol of hope, of the enduring power of love, and of the natural cycles that govern life on earth. Through her, the Slavic people were reminded of the importance of balance, harmony, and connection to the world around them. In this way, Lada's legacy endures as a timeless representation of the divine feminine, the beauty of the earth, and the ever-renewing power of life. Purin, the god of thunder, war, and the heavens, is one of the most powerful and widely venerated deities in Slavic mythology. He is the embodiment of strength, courage, and the righteous fury of nature. His presence in the Slavic pantheon is significant because he represents the forces of order, law, and structure, in contrast to chaotic, wild elements personified by his eternal rival, Veles. Purin is often depicted as a warrior god, wielding a mighty axe or thunderbolt, symbols of his control over the sky and the storms that shape the world below. As the god of thunder and lightning, Purin controlled the weather, particularly the storms that brought rain to the earth and were essential for fertility of the land. In this sense, he was a vital figure in the lives of the Slavic people, who relied heavily on agriculture and depended on the gods to provide the necessary elements for their crops to grow. Purin's role as a god of war made him a central figure in the lives of the warriors and leaders of the Slavic tribes. He was invoked in times of conflict, and his strength and power were seen as crucial to ensuring victory in battle. As a god of justice, Purin was associated with the righteous cause, fighting against injustice, evil, and chaos. He was a protector of the people, ensuring that the forces of disorder and malice, often embodied by other gods such as Veles, would not prevail. In many ways, Purin's role as a warrior and protector placed him in the position of upholding the moral and ethical order of the world, fighting to maintain the balance between good and evil, light and darkness. In the eyes of the Slavic people, Purin was a champion of civilization, the god who safeguarded society and ensured that peace and order prevailed. The connection between Purin and the heavens is central to his role as the god of thunder and lightning. In Slavic mythology, the heavens were seen as a realm of the gods, a place of divine authority and power. Purin, as the ruler of the heavens, had control over the celestial forces, including the storms, the rain, and the lightning. Thunder was thought to be his voice, a mighty roar that echoed to the skies as a sign of his presence and power. When Purin threw his thunderbolts, they were believed to strike the earth with devastating force, bringing destruction to those who incurred his wrath. However, Purin's lightning also had a constructive purpose. It was believed to purify the earth and bring the necessary rain that ensured the fertility of the land. In this way, Purin's role was not merely one of destruction, but also of renewal and growth. His storms were a necessary part of the natural cycle, and while they could be terrifying, they were also seen as a source of life. In many myths, Purin's battle with his nemesis Veles is a central theme. This eternal struggle between the forces of order and chaos is one of the defining elements of Slavic cosmology. Veles, the god of the underworld, cattle, and chaos, frequently attempts to disrupt the harmony of the world, stealing Purin's cattle or sowing disorder among the people. In response, Purin wages war on Veles, using his thunderbolts and weapons to chase him down and restore order. The battle between Purin and Veles represents the ongoing struggle between light and dark, good and evil, and law and chaos. It is a struggle that echoes through the natural world, where the forces of order and chaos are in constant tension. Purin's victory over Veles is seen as a reaffirmation of the moral order of the world, ensuring that the forces of good will ultimately triumph over evil. Purin's warriors were seen as his earthly champions, those who fought in his name to uphold the values of justice, strength, and honor. In Slavic society, warriors were highly respected, and the connection between Purin and the warrior class was crucial in shaping the culture of the time. The god of war was the ideal patron for those who fought to protect their people, and Purin's influence on the warrior class was deeply ingrained in Slavic society. Warriors would offer sacrifices and prayers to Purin before battle, asking for his favor and strength in combat. In return, they believed that Purin would grant them courage and victory, ensuring that their enemies would fall before them. The rituals performed in honor of Purin were not only acts of devotion, but also expressions of the warrior's commitment to the ideals of strength, honor, and loyalty. In this way, Purin's influence on the warrior class was both spiritual and practical, shaping the ethos of the Slavic people. As the god of the heavens, Purin was also associated with the natural elements that govern life on earth. In addition to his control over thunder and lightning, he was believed to have dominion over the wind, the rain, and the skies. The wind, in particular, was seen as an extension of his power, as it carried his voice and his will across the land. Purin's storms were not random. They were seen as purposeful, as he wielded the forces of nature to bring about balance and order. The sky itself was a symbol of his authority, and his presence in the heavens was a reminder of the divine order that governed the world. Just as the sun and moon had their cycles, so too did the storms that Purin controlled have their seasons. These storms, though sometimes violent and destructive, were necessary for continued health of the land, and they were seen as a reflection of Purin's will. In some versions of Slavic mythology, Purin was also associated with the tree of life, a symbol of the connection between the heavens and the earth. The tree was believed to be the axis around which the world revolved, and it was thought to be the source of all life. Purin, as the god of the heavens, was believed to dwell in the branches of this tree, where he could watch over the world and maintain the order of the cosmos. The tree of life was also a symbol of the cycle of death and rebirth, with its roots in the underworld and its branches reaching toward the heavens. This connection between Purin and the tree of life further emphasized his role as a god who bridged the gap between the earthly and the divine, ensuring that the world remained in harmony. Purin's image as a god of war was not just about physical conflict, but also about moral and spiritual battle. In some myths, Purin's struggles are not just against Veles and the forces of chaos, but against internal forces of disorder, such as pride, greed, and corruption. The thunderbolts that Purin wielded were seen as a tool of purification, cleansing the world of these negative forces and restoring balance to the world. In this sense, Purin's power was not only destructive but also transformative, as he fought to create a world where order and righteousness prevailed. His role as the god of war was not merely about victory in battle, but about the triumph of justice and the establishment of moral order in society. Purin's worship was widespread across the Slavic world, from the eastern lands of the Rus to the southern Balkans. His name and attributes were shared across many Slavic cultures, and he was often associated with the thunder gods of other Indo-European traditions, such as Thor in Norse mythology and Zeus in Greek mythology. In some regions, Purin was syncretized with other gods, such as the sun god Dazbog, to reflect his multifaceted nature as both a creator and destroyer, a god of law and war. Despite the variations in his worship, the central themes of Purin's mythology remain consistent. He was a god of the sky, of thunder, of war, and of justice, a figure who represented the forces of order and righteousness in a world that was often torn by chaos and conflict. In conclusion, Purin stands as one of the most important and enduring figures in Slavic mythology. As a god of thunder, war, and the heavens, he represents the power and majesty of nature, the righteousness of law and order, and the strength of the warrior spirit. His eternal battle with Veles, his control over the weather, and his connection to the heavens and the tree of life all contribute to his status as a god of great authority and significance. Purin's worship reflects the values of the ancient Slavic people, who revered him not only for his power, but for his role in maintaining the moral and cosmic order of the world. Through his influence, the Slavic people sought to bring balance to their lives and to the world around them, ensuring that justice, strength, and honor would prevail in the face of chaos. Veles, the god of the underworld, cattle, commerce, and magic, is one of the most complex and intriguing figures in Slavic mythology. He is often portrayed as a shapeshifter, a cunning and mysterious god who dwells in the realms beneath the earth. In contrast to Purin, the god of thunder and war, Veles embodies the chaotic, dark, and transformative forces that exist beneath the surface of the world. While Purin represents order, justice, and the forces of the heavens, Veles is a personification of the earth, the underworld, and the hidden aspects of life. His connection to death, magic, and wealth reflects the dual nature of his power. He is both a destroyer and a creator, a figure who stands at the crossroads of life and death, light and dark, known and unknown. Veles is primarily associated with the underworld, a place where the spirits of the dead dwell and where the cycle of life and death takes place. In Slavic cosmology, the underworld was not a place of eternal torment, as it might be in other traditions, but rather a realm where the spirits of the deceased went to rest and to be reborn. Veles ruled over this realm, overseeing the journey of souls as they passed from the world of the living to the world of the dead. This position gave him significant power, as he was seen as the guardian of the afterlife and the keeper of the souls. The underworld, in many Slavic traditions, was also a place of transformation, where the deceased would undergo a period of purification before being reincarnated or reborn into the world. In this sense, Veles was not just a god of death, but also a god of renewal and rebirth, ensuring that the cycle of life continued and that the natural order was preserved. Veles' dual nature is reflected in his connection to cattle. He was a god of herds and animals, particularly domestic animals such as cows, sheep, and horses, which were vital to the agricultural and pastoral societies of the Slavic people. Cattle represented wealth, sustenance, and status in these communities, and Veles' role as the god of cattle made him an important figure in ensuring the prosperity of the people. In some myths, Veles was depicted as a protector of animals, watching over the herds and ensuring their health and fertility. However, he was also a god who had the power to take away the herds, particularly in times of hardship or as a result of his conflict with Purin. The theft of cattle by Veles was a common motif in Slavic mythology, symbolizing the god's ability to disrupt the natural order and bring about chaos. This theft often led to a battle between Veles and Purin, as the two gods represented opposing forces. Purin, the god of order and light, and Veles, the god of chaos and darkness. In addition to his role as a god of cattle, Veles was also associated with commerce and trade. The exchange of goods, wealth, and resources was an essential part of Slavic society, and Veles was believed to oversee these transactions. As the god of wealth, Veles had the power to grant prosperity or to bring about misfortune in business and trade. Merchants and traders would invoke Veles for his blessings before embarking on their journeys, hoping for success and fortune in their dealings. In this way, Veles was seen as a god who could influence the material world, determining the flow of wealth and the success of human endeavors. His association with wealth and commerce also gave him a connection to more mercantile aspects of Slavic society, making him a god who was not only concerned with the afterlife, but also with the practical, everyday concerns of the people. Veles' role as a god of magic and the supernatural further adds to his enigmatic and multifaceted nature. He was often seen as a master of sorcery and illusion, with the power to shapeshift into various forms, including that of a serpent, a bear, or even a wolf. This shape-shifting ability made him a god of mystery and transformation, capable of moving between the worlds of the living and the dead, as well as between the realms of gods and humans. In many myths, Veles is depicted as a cunning and trickster-like figure, using his magical abilities to outwit his opponents and to disrupt the natural order. His connection to magic also made him a god of divination, as people would seek his guidance through rituals, dreams, and omens. Veles was believed to communicate with the living through symbols and signs, offering cryptic messages that could guide people in their decisions or warn them of danger. The constant battle between Veles and Purin is one of the most significant themes in Slavic mythology. This conflict, which symbolizes the eternal struggle between chaos and order, light and dark, is reflected in the natural world. The struggle between these two gods was often portrayed as a cosmic battle, with Purin throwing his thunderbolts to strike Veles, who would retreat into the underworld or transform into various animals to escape. The battle between the two gods is also a metaphor for the cycles of nature, with the shifting of seasons, the changing of the weather, and the ebb and flow of life and death. The myths surrounding Veles and Purin suggest that the forces of order and chaos are in constant tension, and that both are necessary for the balance of the world. In this sense, Veles was not just a god of destruction, but also a necessary part of the cosmic order, as he played the role of the adversary, challenging Purin and ensuring that the world remained dynamic and ever-changing. Veles was also associated with the moon, which further emphasized a connection to the hidden, mysterious aspects of life. The moon was seen as a symbol of the unknown and the mystical, and was often linked to the night, death, and the unseen forces of nature. Veles, as a god of magic in the underworld, was believed to have a special relationship with the moon, and his power was often depicted as waxing and waning with the phases of the moon. This connection to the moon gave Veles an air of secrecy and intrigue, as he was seen as a god who operated in the shadows, using his magic to influence events and to guide the souls of the dead. In this way, Veles' role as a god of the moon further deepened his association with the unseen, the mysterious, and the transformative forces of the world. In Slavic culture, Veles was not always viewed as a purely malevolent figure. While his role as a god of the underworld and his association with chaos and death could make him seem ominous, he was also revered as a god of transformation and renewal. His dominion over the underworld made him a necessary figure in the cycle of life and death, ensuring that the souls of the dead were properly guided and that the natural order was preserved. Veles' ability to bring about change, whether through the theft of cattle or the disruption of the status quo, was seen as a necessary force for growth and development. In this way, Veles was a god who embodied both creation and destruction, the forces of life and death, and the complex interplay between order and chaos. Veles was worshipped in various forms across the Slavic world, and his myths and rituals were deeply ingrained in the cultural fabric of the people. In some regions, Veles was honored with sacrifices, particularly in times of hardship or when the people needed guidance or protection. Farmers, merchants, and warriors alike would invoke Veles for his blessings, hoping that his power would bring them success and prosperity. His worship was often associated with the darker aspects of the natural world, such as the forests, rivers, and caves, which were seen as places where the boundaries between the worlds of the living and the dead were thin. Veles' connection to these realms made him a god who could move freely between the worlds, guiding the souls of the departed and influencing the events of the living. In conclusion, Veles is one of the most fascinating and multifaceted gods in Slavic mythology. As the god of the underworld, cattle, commerce, and magic, he embodies the hidden, mysterious, and transformative aspects of life. His constant battle with Purin symbolizes the eternal struggle between order and chaos, light and dark, life and death. Veles' role in the cycle of life and death, his connection to magic, and his influence over the forces of wealth and transformation make him a god of great complexity and significance. Through his worship, the Slavic people acknowledge the importance of both creation and destruction and the necessity of balance between the forces of light and darkness in the natural world. Morozko, the Slavic god of winter, frost, and death, is a figure that embodies the harsh and unforgiving aspects of the natural world. He is often portrayed as a cold, fearsome deity, a personification of winter's chill and inevitable approach of death. In contrast to fertility and life-bringing qualities of other deities in the Slavic pantheon, such as Lada and Dazbog, Morozko represents the darker, more destructive forces of nature. He is both a god of preservation and a god of destruction, a figure who maintains a balance between life and death through the cold, death-bearing months of winter. Morozko is a complex and multifaceted character, embodying the dualities of warmth and cold, life and death, sleep and awakening. His power is as much a part of the cyclical nature of the world as the changing of the seasons, and his role in the Slavic mythos is deeply connected to both the survival and the inevitable end of life. Morozko's dominion over winter made him one of the most significant gods in Slavic culture, particularly in northern regions where harsh winters were a defining feature of life. Winter was not merely a time of cold and deprivation. It was also a time of rest, rejuvenation, and preparation for the coming spring. The long, frozen months were seen as a necessary period of dormancy, a time when the earth rested and regained its strength before the warmth of summer brought new life. However, the cold was also dangerous, and Morozko, as the god of winter, was responsible for both ensuring the harshness of the season and protecting the earth during this time of rest. The frozen landscapes and the biting winds that accompanied winter were seen as a direct influence, and he was invoked both with fear and respect. His presence reminded the people of the fragility of life and the inevitability of death, as well as the necessity of enduring the challenges that winter brought in order to emerge stronger in the spring. The imagery associated with Morozko often reflects the terrifying aspects of winter. He is depicted as a tall, cold, and often terrifying figure, with frost covering his body and a chilling aura surrounding him. In some tales, he is portrayed as a figure who could freeze people with a single glance or touch. His breath was said to bring frost to the land, turning trees and rivers into ice and causing the very air to feel sharp and biting. The coldness of Morozko was both a literal and metaphorical representation of the isolation and desolation that winter brought. His association with death is also central to his character, as winter was a time when the dead were believed to roam freely, and the boundaries between life and death were thought to be thinner. Morozko's role in the mythology of the Slavs reflects this understanding of winter as both a time of death and a time of preparation for renewal. Despite his fearsome reputation, Morozko was not always seen as an entirely malevolent figure. He played a necessary role in the natural cycle, ensuring that the earth rested and that life could return in the spring. In this sense, he was viewed as a god who embodied the essential need for balance in nature. Without the cold of winter, there would be no time for the earth to regenerate, and the growth of new life would be impossible. Morozko's role as a harbinger of death and his association with the cold were thus seen as integral to the cycles of life. Death, as feared and harsh as it was also understood as a natural and necessary part of existence, making Morozko an essential figure in the spiritual life of the Slavic people. His presence served as a reminder that death is not the end, but a part of the ongoing flow of life, an inevitable but necessary stage in the eternal cycle of nature. In Slavic folklore, Morozko is often depicted as a god who could be both kind and cruel, depending on his mood. In some tales, he is shown as a figure who offers protection, ensuring that the cold of winter will not be unbearable, as long as people respect the seasonal boundaries and live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. In other stories, however, he is a harsher, more fearsome figure, one who brings frost and cold without mercy, punishing those who do not respect the power of nature or who fail to honor the changing seasons. Morozko's personality, like winter itself, could shift between a gentle, soothing cold and a violent, biting frost. He was both protector and a punisher, offering warmth and protection to those who respected the natural order, but delivering suffering to those who did not. In some legends, Morozko is portrayed as having a particular relationship with young women. He is said to have the power to freeze them with his cold. but in other stories, he appears as a potential suitor or lover. In these tales, the woman may be transformed by the experience, gaining wisdom or strength from her encounter with the god of winter. These stories highlight the dual nature of Morozko's character, the way he could bring both hardship and growth, destruction and rebirth. This duality is a key aspect of his role in the Slavic worldview, where death and life, cold and warmth, are seen as interconnected forces that must coexist. Morozko's connection to death is also closely tied to the mythological concept of sleep. Winter was often associated with sleep and dormancy, as both the earth and the animals went into a kind of hibernation during the cold months. Similarly, humans were said to sleep more during winter, as the harsh conditions made it difficult to work or carry out regular tasks. The time of sleep was also a time of rest, a time when the world could recharge before the energy of the warmer months arrived. Morozko, as a god of winter, was thus a god of sleep and rest, and his icy touch was thought to send both the earth and its inhabitants into a deep slumber from which they would awaken with the coming of spring. One of the most significant aspects of Morozko's mythology is his role in the cycle of life and death. As a god who brings cold and death, he also plays a part in the renewal of life. The frost and the chill that he brings to the earth are a necessary part of the life cycle, for without them, there would be no regeneration. The harsh winter months prepare the earth for the rebirth of spring, when life can once again begin to grow. Morozko's cold is thus not seen purely as destructive. It is a necessary force that allows the cycle of life to continue. Without his presence, the world would be stuck in a perpetual cycle of growth, without the rest and regeneration that winter provides. Thus, while he represents death, he also represents a potential for renewal, making his role in Slavic mythology both essential and inevitable. The worship of Morozko varied across the Slavic world, but he was generally revered in regions where the winter months were particularly severe. Rituals dedicated to him often involved offerings made in the coldest months, especially around the time of the winter solstice. People would leave food or other offerings in the snow, hoping to appease the god and ensure that the winter would not be too harsh. There were also practices meant to protect oneself from his cold, such as wearing special clothes or performing certain rites to ward off his freezing touch. In some regions, people would celebrate the coming of spring by performing rituals that symbolize the death of winter and the rebirth of the earth. These rituals were intended to honor Morozko and to mark the transition from the cold, dark months of winter to the vibrant, life-filled months of spring. Morozko's legacy continues to echo through Slavic folklore, where he is still seen as a figure that embodies both fear and respect. His presence in stories reminds us of the necessity of winter in the grand cycle life, the need for rest and dormancy before the return of growth and renewal. While he is feared for his cold, icy nature, Morozko is also a symbol of the natural forces that regulate life, death, and rebirth, reflecting the enduring themes of change and transformation that are central to Slavic mythology. In many ways, Morozko's story is a reflection of the larger forces that shape the world, forces that are both destructive and regenerative, both cold and warm, both final and renewing. Through Morozko, the Slavic people understood that death is not an end, but rather a necessary part of the ongoing cycle life, much like the cold of winter is necessary for the rebirth of spring. Chernobog, whose name translates to Black God, is one of the most enigmatic and complex figures in Slavic mythology. As a god of darkness, misfortune, and death, he embodies the shadowy, chaotic forces that exist in the world. Unlike the benevolent gods who represent order, fertility, and light, Chernobog is a personification of the darker side of life, associated with the destructive aspects of nature and the universe. His character is both feared and revered, embodying the duality of existence itself: light and dark, creation and destruction, good and evil. In many ways, Chernobog is the archetypal trickster figure, constantly challenging the status quo and bringing about unexpected change. He is a god who operates outside the bounds of conventional morality, a god who can bring about chaos and misfortune, but who is also integral to the natural order of the world. The ambiguity surrounding his nature makes him a figure of mystery, one whose presence is deeply felt, but whose motives are often unclear. Chernobog's association with darkness and misfortune makes him one of the most feared deities in Slavic mythology. He is often depicted as a dark, brooding figure, cloaked in shadow, who brings calamity and sorrow to the world. His domain is the unseen, the hidden forces that affect life in subtle and often terrifying ways. He represents the night, the storms, the fears, and the troubles that plague humanity, and he is a reminder that the world is not just governed by light and order, but also by chaos and destruction. In this sense, Chernobog's power is deeply tied to the concept of balance. Without darkness, there can be no light, and without destruction, there can be no creation. While many gods in the Slavic pantheon are associated with positive forces, such as fertility, love, and protection, Chernobog represents the necessary forces of entropy, decay, and the unknown. The trickster nature of Chernobog is one of his defining characteristics. Tricksters are figures who operate outside of societal norms, often creating chaos and disruption through their actions. In some myths, Chernobog is a god who delights in mischief, using his power to create confusion, disorder, and sometimes even harm. His influence is often associated with bad luck, misfortune, and the unexpected twist of fate that can change the course of a person's life. Like other trickster figures in mythology, Chernobog's actions can be both malicious and playful, and his interventions in the world are rarely straightforward. His ability to shape-shift, deceive, and manipulate the forces of nature adds to his status as a god who operates in the realms of ambiguity and uncertainty. Despite his association with darkness and misfortune, Chernobog is not purely a figure of evil. He represents the necessary counterbalance to the gods of light, order, and creation. His role in the cosmic order is to challenge the established forces of the world and to bring about change through chaos. This chaotic influence is a vital force in nature, for it is through disruption that transformation occurs. Chernobog's actions are a reminder that change, while often difficult and painful, is necessary for growth and renewal. His influence is felt in the moments of upheaval and destruction that punctuate human history, times when societies are forced to adapt, when individuals must face hardship and loss, and when the world itself must be reshaped. Chernobog is also a god of death, and his connection to the underworld further emphasizes his role as a harbinger of the inevitable end of life. Unlike Morozko, the god of winter and death, whose power is tied to the natural cycle of life and death, Chernobog's association with death is more mysterious and unpredictable. He does not bring death in a natural, cyclical manner, but rather as a disruptive force that can strike unexpectedly, often in the form of tragedy or disaster. His presence in mythology is a reminder that death is not always a gentle, inevitable process, but can be sudden and violent, arriving without warning and bringing with it a sense of finality. This makes Chernobog a figure that evokes both fear and respect. For while death is an inevitable part of life, its randomness and unpredictability are aspects that humans are often reluctant to face. In addition to his role as a bringer of misfortune and death, Chernobog is also a god of creation. This may seem paradoxical, given his association with darkness and destruction, but in Slavic cosmology, creation and destruction are not seen as opposing forces, but as complementary ones. The universe itself is in a constant state of flux, with destruction and creation working hand in hand. Chernobog's dark influence is a catalyst for change, clearing the way for new life to emerge. He embodies the idea that in order for something new to be created, something old must be destroyed. His actions, though seemingly negative, are ultimately part of the ongoing cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This connection to creation through destruction links Chernobog to the concept of entropy, the gradual decline of order into chaos, which in turn leads to the formation of new patterns and structures. Chernobog's association with darkness also connects him to the forces of the night. In many cultures, the night is a time when the boundaries between the known and the unknown are blurred, and Chernobog is seen as a ruler of this liminal space. He governs over the unseen realms, the shadows where mysteries dwell, and where hidden truths are revealed. The night is also a time of rest and renewal, a time when the world sleeps and the forces of nature take a break from their constant activity. Chernobog, as the god of the night, represents both the fear and the potential for transformation that the darkness brings. The night is not just a time of danger and uncertainty, but also a time of peace, reflection, and growth. In Slavic folklore, Chernobog is often portrayed as a powerful and fearsome figure, sometimes even as a monstrous or demonic being. He is said to possess the ability to curse individuals or entire communities, bringing bad luck or disaster. His followers, who were typically seen as practitioners of dark magic or sorcery, would invoke his power in hopes of achieving their goals, whether it was to bring harm to enemies or to create turmoil in the world. Chernabog's ability to manipulate fate and fortune made him a figure of immense power, but also one that was feared and avoided by many. His power over the unseen forces of nature allowed him to shape the events of the world in unpredictable and often dangerous ways. One of the most fascinating aspects of Chernabog mythology is the way in which he embodies the idea of duality. He is both a god of death and creation, a bringer of chaos and a force for change. His ability to bring about misfortune and suffering is tempered by his role in shaping the world and creating new opportunities for growth. This duality makes him a god who is both feared and respected, for while his actions may seem harmful, they are also essential for the ongoing transformation of the universe. Without his influence, the world will be stagnant, locked in a cycle of unchanging order. Chernabog's power lies in his ability to disrupt and challenge the status quo, forcing the world to adapt and evolve. Chernabog's place in Slavic mythology is also linked to the broader themes of fate and destiny. As a god who governs over misfortune and change, he is often seen as a force that cannot be controlled or predicted. His influence is felt in the twists of fate that define the lives of individuals and societies, making him a god of both tragedy and triumph. The unpredictability of his actions reflects the uncertainty of life itself, where outcomes are often shaped by forces beyond our control. Chernabog's presence in mythology is a reminder that life is both fragile and resilient, subject to the whims of fate and the constant interplay of creation and destruction. In conclusion, Chernabog is one of the most fascinating and paradoxical figures in Slavic mythology. As the god of darkness, misfortune, death, and creation, he embodies the dualities that define the world. His role as a trickster and harbinger of change makes him a figure of mystery and intrigue, while his connection to the cycles of life and death ties him to the fundamental forces that govern the universe. Chernabog's presence in mythology reminds us that life is a constant balancing act between light and dark, order and chaos, and creation and destruction. Through his power, the Slavic people understood that change, even in its most disruptive forms, is necessary for growth and renewal. Chernabog, like the night itself, is both a force to be feared and a force to be embraced. Mokash is one of the most revered and ancient deities in Slavic mythology. As a goddess of fertility, earth, and women, she embodies the nurturing and life-giving aspects of nature. Her influence extends to agriculture, motherhood, and the cycles of life, making her a central figure in the daily lives of the Slavic people. Mokash represents the natural forces that sustain life, and her blessings were sought for the well-being of families, crops, and communities. In a world where survival was closely tied to land, Mokash's connection to fertility and agriculture made her a symbol of abundance and prosperity. She was also a goddess who protected women and children, ensuring their safety and health during pregnancy and childbirth. Mokash's role in the Slavic pantheon was multifaceted, and her worship reflected the deep respect and reverence the Slavic people had for the earth and its cycles. The name Mokash itself is derived from the Old Slavic word mokriti, meaning to wet or to moisten, reflecting her connection to the earth's fertile, life-giving waters. Mokash was often depicted as a maternal figure, a powerful and protective goddess whose influence extended over the land and its creatures. She was associated with the harvest, the growth of crops, and fertility of animals, all of which were vital to the survival of the Slavic tribes. The goddess was not only a symbol of agricultural abundance, but also a figure of divine feminine power, representing the strength and endurance of women in society. Her role in fertility extended to both the physical realm, helping women to conceive and bear children, and the spiritual realm, where she was believed to ensure prosperity and health of the community. Mokash's association with the earth and fertility placed her at the center of many agricultural rituals and festivals. In the agrarian societies of the Slavic people, the success of the harvest was essential to survival, and the goddess was called upon to ensure that the crops would grow and that the soil would be rich and fertile. In the spring and summer, when planting and harvesting were in full swing, Mokash's blessings were sought to ensure the land would yield an abundant crop. She was believed to be the force behind the growth of wheat, barley, rye, and other crops, as well as the health of livestock and the well-being of the community. Farmers would offer prayers and sacrifices to Mokash, asking for a favor in bringing a bountiful harvest and ensuring that the land would remain fertile for years to come. Her connection to fertility was not just limited to crops, but also extended to the people. Mokash was often invoked during rites of passage, especially those related to birth and motherhood. Women who were trying to conceive would pray to Mokash for help, and pregnant women would seek a protection and blessings for a safe and healthy childbirth. Mokash was believed to protect mothers and children, ensuring that pregnancies would go smoothly and that babies would be born strong and healthy. In a time when infant mortality rates were high and childbirth was often a perilous process, Mokash's role as a protector of women and children was of utmost importance. Her maternal nature made her a symbol of hope and safety for families, and her blessings were seen as essential for the continuation of the tribe. Beyond her role as a goddess of fertility and motherhood, Mokash was also a deity of love and sexual desire. She was often associated with the pleasures and passions of love, as well as the more intimate aspects of human relationships. Her role in this domain was seen as essential to the vitality and well-being of the community, as love and sexual connection were central to perpetuation of life and the strengthening of family bonds. Mokash was a goddess who celebrated the joys of human connection, and her influence was felt in the union of lovers, the creation of families, and the harmonious relationships between men and women. She was considered a protector of marriage and home, ensuring that relationships would thrive and that the bonds of family would remain strong. Mokash's relationship with love extended beyond human affairs and into the spiritual realm as well. She was believed to have a special connection to the divine forces of creation, and her love was seen as a driving force behind the fertility of the earth itself. In some versions of her mythology, Mokash is described as a partner of Purin, the god of thunder and war, and together they were thought to embody the balance between masculine and feminine forces. While Purin represented the active, powerful forces of creation, Mokash represented the nurturing, receptive aspects of life. Their union symbolized a complementary relationship between the two forces that govern the world: the energetic and the receptive, the storm and the soil, the sky and the earth. This union of opposites was central to the Slavic understanding of balance and harmony in nature. The goddess Mokash was also seen as a protector of women's rights and freedoms. In a time when the roles of women in society were often restricted, Mokash provided a divine counterpoint to the patriarchal structure. She was a symbol of female empowerment, strength, and autonomy. Women who were involved in the rituals and festivals dedicated to Mokash were often given special roles of authority and influence within their communities. In some traditions, the goddess was also seen as a bringer of justice, particularly when it came to issues affecting women. She was thought to protect women from harm, whether from domestic abuse, violence, or other injustices, and her power was invoked in matters of marriage, divorce, and the protection of women's rights. Mokash's presence in mythology also extended to her connection with the natural world. As the goddess of the earth, she was seen as the guardian of the land and its creatures. Her influence was felt in the seasons and the rhythms of nature, as she guided the cycles of growth, decay, and renewal. The changing of the seasons was understood to be a reflection of Mokash's work, as she ensured that the earth would rest in winter and bring forth new life in the spring. Her connection to the earth was also symbolic of the interconnectedness of all life, as she was seen as the force that connected all living beings to the land, the plants, and the animals. In this sense, Mokash represented the harmony between humans and nature, emphasizing the importance of living in balance with the earth and honoring the cycles of life that sustain all beings. In addition to her association with the earth and fertility, Mokash was also a goddess of water. Water, as a life-giving force, was intimately tied to fertility and growth, and Mokash's domain extended to rivers, lakes, and springs. These bodies of water were often seen as sacred, and people would visit them to make offerings to Mokash, asking for her blessings in matters of fertility, health, and prosperity. The goddess's connection to water also linked her to fluidity and adaptability of life, as water is both a nurturing and destructive force, capable of sustaining life, while also washing away what is no longer needed. The worship of Mokash was widespread across the Slavic world, and she was honored in various forms and under different names. Her cult was particularly strong in the eastern and southern Slavic regions, where agricultural practices were central to the economy and survival of the people. Festivals dedicated to Mokash were often held at key points in the agricultural calendar, such as the spring planting season or the harvest period, when the fertility of the earth was most directly relevant to the community's well-being. During these festivals, rituals were performed to honor Mokash and ask for her blessings in the coming year. These rituals often involved offerings of food, drink, and symbolic representations of fertility, such as seeds, fruits, and flowers. In conclusion, Mokash stands as one of the most important and enduring figures in Slavic mythology. As a goddess of fertility, earth, and women, she embodies the life-giving forces of nature and the nurturing aspects of existence. Her connection to agriculture, motherhood, love, and the natural world made her a central figure in the spiritual life of the Slavic people, and her worship reflected the deep reverence they held for the earth and its cycles. Mokash's role as protector of women, a symbol of fertility and creation, and a goddess of love and family, made her a figure of great power and influence. Through her, the Slavic people understood the importance of balance and harmony in their lives, as well as the need to live in alignment with the natural world in order to thrive and prosper. Dazbog is one of the most prominent deities in Slavic mythology, revered as a god of the sun, light, and fire. His influence reaches deep into the very foundation of the Slavic understanding of the cosmos, embodying the life-giving force of the sun that brings warmth, energy, and vitality to the world. Dazbog is not only associated with the celestial body of the sun itself, but also with the broader concept of light as a transformative and sustaining power. As the sun governs the day, shaping the cycle of time with its rising and setting, Dazbog holds dominion over the daily rhythm of life, providing the warmth necessary for growth, harvest, and survival. His importance to the agricultural and pastoral societies of the ancient Slavs cannot be overstated, as the sun was directly linked to the health of crops, the growth of animals, and the overall prosperity of the people. At the heart of Dazbog's role in Slavic mythology is his association with light, which symbolizes life, clarity, and divine protection. Light, in the mythological sense, is more than just physical illumination. It represents spiritual and moral illumination as well. Dazbog, as the sun god, is believed to shine light not only upon the earth but also upon the hearts and minds of people, bringing wisdom, truth, and righteousness. The sun was often seen as a protector and a guide, casting its rays over the world to dispel the darkness of ignorance, evil, and disorder. As such, Dazbog was viewed as a guardian who could shield the world from the forces of chaos, bringing balance and harmony wherever his light reached. This role as a divine protector made him an immensely important figure in the lives of the Slavic people, who looked to him for protection and guidance in times of need. Dazbog's connection to the sun also links him to the cycle of life and death. The sun's daily journey across the sky, rising in the east, reaching its zenith at noon, and setting in the west, mirrors the natural cycle of birth, life, and death. In this respect, Dazbog's daily rebirth as the sun rises symbolizes a constant renewal of life, while the setting sun reflects the inevitable return to the realm of darkness and death. The interplay between light and dark, day and night, life and death, was central to the Slavic understanding of the cosmos, and Dazbog was considered to embody this eternal cycle. His journey across the sky, and the life-giving energy he provided to the earth, reinforced the idea that life was a cyclical process of continual renewal, governed by divine forces of creation and destruction. As a sun god, Dazbog's role was also crucial in ensuring fertility of the land. The ancient Slavs, who were primarily agricultural societies, depended on the sun to ripen their crops and sustain their livestock. Without the sun, there could be no harvest, no growth, no sustenance. The sun was seen as the ultimate source of all life, providing the energy necessary for plants and animals to thrive. Dazbog, as the embodiment of the sun, was therefore called upon to bless the land, ensuring that crops would grow and that the earth would be fertile. Festivals and rituals dedicated to Dazbog were common during key points in the agricultural calendar, particularly during the planting and harvest seasons. People would offer sacrifices and perform prayers, hoping for his favor in securing a bountiful harvest. In some regions, the god was also associated with the health of livestock, as the sun's warmth and light were necessary for survival and prosperity of the animals. Dazbog's connection to fire further emphasizes his power as a life-giving and transformative force. Fire, like the sun, is a powerful and dual-natured element. It can be both destructive and creative. While fire can burn and devastate, it can also purify, cook, and transform raw materials into something valuable. In the same way, Daz Bog's fire was believed to bring both destruction and renewal. As the sun god, he was seen as a source of divine fire that could both nurture and burn away what was unneeded. This connection of fire also linked him to the broader theme of change, transformation, and growth. Just as the fire of the sun fuels the cycles of life, it also cleanses and prepares the way for new growth. The ability of fire to both consume and create mirrored the way in which Daz Bog's light was seen as both a force of destruction and a force of creation, burning away the old to make way for the new. The worship of Daz Bog was widespread among the Slavic peoples, and his role as the sun god meant that he was revered not just as a divine entity, but as a key figure in the daily life of the people. In many Slavic traditions, the sun was thought to be a divine being who was constantly engaged in a battle against the forces of darkness. This battle, which was represented by the sun's daily struggle to rise and set, was often depicted in mythological stories in which Daz Bog faced challenges from dark forces, such as the demon Morozko or other chaotic entities. These stories symbolize the eternal struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, life and death. The sun's triumph over the night was seen as a victory for order, growth, and life itself. Daz Bog, as a personification of the sun, was therefore seen as a hero of this cosmic battle, always emerging victorious to bring light and warmth to the world. In addition to his role as the sun god, Daz Bog was also associated with the concept of divine kingship. The sun, as the most powerful and visible force in the sky, was often seen as the ultimate ruler of the world. As such, Daz Bog was sometimes depicted as a king or leader, with his power extending over both the heavens and the earth. He was believed to have a special relationship with the rulers and kings of the Slavic people, who were thought to be divinely chosen to govern in his name. The king, as the earthly representative of Daz Bog, was seen as the one who ensured the prosperity and protection of the people. This divine kingship reinforced Daz Bog's importance as not only a cosmic force, but also a political and cultural symbol. The sun's power to govern the day and bring order to the world was mirrored in the authority of the king to bring stability and justice to the community. Daz Bog's importance was also reflected in the art and iconography of the Slavic people. He was often depicted as a radiant figure, with a halo or disk surrounding his head to symbolize the sun. In some depictions, he was shown driving a chariot across the sky, pulled by horses or other animals. This image of the sun god in a chariot was a common motif in Indo-European mythologies and underscored the idea of the sun's daily journey through the heavens. This image reinforced the cyclical nature of time and the eternal passage of day and night, as well as Daz Bog's central role in that rhythm. As with many gods in Slavic mythology, Daz Bog's influence extended beyond the physical world into the spiritual realm. The sun, as a source of light and warmth, was believed to be a purifier, capable of dispelling the darkness of evil and ignorance. In this sense, Daz Bog's light was not just a physical phenomenon, but also a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment and moral clarity. People would invoke Daz Bog not only for agricultural or material blessings, but also for guidance, protection, and wisdom. His light was seen as a force that illuminated the path to righteousness and justice, dispelling the shadows of sin and deceit. In conclusion, Daz Bog is one of the most important and multifaceted deities in Slavic mythology. As the god of the sun, light, and fire, he embodies the life-giving forces of the cosmos, providing warmth, energy, and vitality to the world. His role in the Slavic worldview is inseparable from the cycles of life, death, and renewal, as the sun governs the rhythms of nature, growth, and time. Daz Bog's power to protect, guide, and transform makes him a central figure in the spiritual and cultural life of the Slavic people, and his connection to the land, the people, and the ruler reflects his importance in both the natural and political spheres. Through his light, Daz Bog symbolizes not only the physical force of the sun, but also the moral and spiritual clarity that guides the lives of the people. His worship reinforces the interconnectedness of all life, the balance between creation and destruction, and the cyclical nature of the universe. Purin, one of the most significant deities in Slavic mythology, stands as the embodiment of thunder, lightning, and war. Often regarded as the supreme god of the Slavic pantheon, he was a warrior figure, the god who governed the heavens and wielded the destructive and powerful forces of nature. Purin's primary role in Slavic cosmology was that of protector and a force of order, often positioned in opposition to the chaos and darkness embodied by other deities, particularly the god of evil and misfortune, Chernabog. His influence reached beyond the natural world into the lives of people, especially those involved in warfare and battle, where he was invoked for strength, courage, and victory. Purin's power was not just seen in his dominion over the elements, but also in the way he personified the struggle between good and evil, light and dark, order and chaos. As a warrior deity, he represented the strength and valor necessary to protect the people from the destructive forces that threatened their world, both in the physical and spiritual sense. Purin's connection to thunder and lightning made him one of the most awe-inspiring gods in the Slavic world. Thunder, in many ancient cultures, was considered the voice of the gods, a direct manifestation of divine power. The sound of thunder was perceived as a powerful and sometimes terrifying reminder of the forces beyond human control. Purin, as a god who controlled thunder, was not just a symbol of destructive power, but also of divine justice. His thunderous voice was seen as a signal of his anger, a warning to those who defied the natural or moral laws of the universe. The lightning, as another manifestation of Purin's power, was often described as a weapon in his hand, a force capable of striking down his enemies with precision and fury. Just as lightning splits the sky, so too did Purin cleave to the forces of disorder and chaos, bringing about a sense of divine retribution. In Slavic mythology, Purin's role as a warrior god was central to his identity. He was often depicted as a mighty, armored figure, wielding a bow and arrows or an axe, ready to do battle against his enemies, including the forces of darkness and the demons that sought to overthrow the order of the world. Purin's enemies were often personified as serpents or dragons, which in many cultures symbolize chaos, evil, and the forces that sought to disrupt the harmony of a universe. This mythological imagery of Purin battling against serpents and dragons mirrored the Slavic perception of him as a protector, whose strength was necessary to maintain balance and prevent the world from being engulfed by darkness. The dragon-slaying motif, which is common in many Indo-European mythologies, highlights Purin's role as a cosmic hero whose courage and might were essential in defending the world against the forces of destruction. Purin's close association with the elements of thunder and lightning also linked him to the forces of nature in a way that was essential to the survival of the Slavic people. The power of the storms he commanded was feared, but it was also revered, as thunderstorms were a vital part of the agricultural cycle. Rainstorms, which often accompanied thunder and lightning, brought the much-needed water to the crops, ensuring that the land remained fertile and capable of sustaining life. Purin's storms, though dangerous, were seen as a necessary force for renewal and growth. They were both a sign of his power and a reminder that life could not exist without the periodic chaos that disrupted the status quo and allowed for new life to emerge. As a result, the Slavic people did not merely fear Purin's storms, but also honored them as a crucial part of the natural order. Purin's influence extended beyond the natural world into the social and political realms. As a god of war and protection, he was a patron of warriors, soldiers, and leaders who sought victory in battle. Just as Purin wielded his thunderous power to defeat his enemies, so too did warriors invoke him for strength, courage, and divine favor before going into battle.